So in the last class, just we had discussed about the hematuria. Hematuria, what are the contents of hematuria? What is hematuria? What are the types of hematuria? What are the causes of hematuria? And then what are the disease comes under hematuria? Most important one is the acute nephritis or post-streptococcal nephritis. So we had discussed about nephritis. What is nephritis? What is the etiology of nephritis? What are the signs and symptoms that you will get in nephritis? What are the investigations do you do for hematuria? And then what are the approach for hematuria and how can you treat hematuria? And what is the prognosis? Today we'll discuss about proteinuria. Okay? Proteinuria. So first of all, so what is proteinuria? Proteinuria is common in children, may present a benign conditions or sometimes it might be a underlying renal diseases. The third one is renal disease, systemic, or then the third one is proteinuria occurs secondary to the glomerular or tubular causes. So if you see about the proteinuria, do you know how to know the urine contains protein? There are some tests. The first test is heat coagulation test. If you are in suspicion that the patient is having protein in the urine, then you can do the heat coagulation test. What we'll do, you take 3/4 of the test tube urine and then you just heat it by some flame, and you will find that there is a coagulation of the protein. So how can you know really this is a albumin or whether it is a phosphate? What you put some potassium hydroxide, and if it is dissolved, it means it is not a albumin, it is a phosphate. But if does not dissolve, it is albumin. Okay. The second test that you will do by urosticks. There are different colors in the urosticks. Means if the protein is nil, it shows that there is no change in the color. If it is trace, there is slight change in the color, and so on and so forth. If it is a albumin is 4+, it becomes deep blue. So now let us come to the So sorry, there is some interruption. So what is the definition of proteinuria? Presence of albumin in the urine is called proteinuria. What are the types of proteinuria? It might be physiological or it might be pathological. So in proteinuria, the pathological proteinuria, the albumin may be nil, trace, or 1+, 2+, or 3+, or 4+. Causes might be physiological. Physiological means exercise, stress, dehydration, fever, and orthostatic proteinuria. Pathological means there may be renal disease or tubular disease. Now let us come to the nephrotic syndrome. In proteinuria, the most important disease is the nephrotic syndrome. So how can you define nephrotic syndrome? Nephrotic syndrome is usually characterized by massive proteinuria, hypoalbuminemia, hyperlipidemia, and generalized edema. This is also called anasarca. So let us come one by one. What is massive proteinuria? Massive proteinuria means if the albumin is massive, means if albumin level is 3+ or 4+. So why there is a massive proteinuria? First one, you have to know that the albumin contains negative charge, while the endothelium contains positive charge. If there is loss of negative charge in the albumin, it will attract toward the endothelium and there is a loss of albumin. Second one is increased size of the pores. Pores means if there is increased size of the endothelial pores or in between the food process, then there is a loss of albumin. The third one is increased absorption. And fourth one is release of the platelet factors in glomeruli. These all are the causes of massive proteinuria. So what are the protein lost in the massive proteinuria? This is albumin, thyroxine binding protein, then cholesterol binding proteins, and there may be metal binding proteins and other proteins also, protein C, protein H. These are the protein lost. The second one is hypoalbuminemia. Why there is hypoalbuminemia? Because of increased loss. So usually what will happen, if you see the albumin level in the blood is 3+5 to 4+5 gram per deciliter. But there is hypoproteinemia because of massive proteinuria. So the hypoproteinemia occurs. Then the third one is edema, generalized edema. Why there is edema? Because once the albumin is lost, the oncotic pressure is low and hydrostatic pressure is increased. So from the intravascular space, the fluid goes to the interstitial space and there is a edema. Okay, then come to the why there is a hyperlipidemia. The hyperlipidemia, conservation of the very low density lipoprotein, loss of apoprotein, and then loss of level of high density lipoprotein. So all those causes hyperlipidemia. Okay, so you have to know what is the level of cholesterol in the blood. Usually the level of cholesterol in the blood is 100 150 to 220 milligram per deciliter. But usually what happens if the patient suffer from nephrotic syndrome, it is more than 220 milligram per deciliter. Okay, now let us come next slide. What is the incidence of nephrotic syndrome? Usually it has been seen that 2 to 7 cases per 1 lakh children. And the second one is, it is 10-fold lower in the adult, and males to female ratio is 2:1. Usually it occurs more common in the children. The minimal change nephrotic syndrome occurs in 2 to 5 years of age. And 92% of the minimal change nephrotic syndrome is experience remission. So you have to know that what is the incidence of the nephrotic syndrome. Now let us come to the, how can you classify? The nephrotic syndrome is classified into 2, primary and secondary. Primary means the disease itself is in the glomeruli. Secondary means there might be some secondary causes, means the disease is otherwhere, but the effect is in the glomeruli. Now come to the primary cases. What are the causes of primary causes of nephrotic syndrome? The first one is minimal change nephrotic syndrome. The second one is focal sclerosis. The third one is membranoproliferative. Fourth one is membranous and membranoproliferative. Now let us come to the other slide. What are the causes of secondary? Secondary causes, the most common cause is SLE, systemic lupus erythematosus. The others are infections. The infections are either viral infections like hepatitis B virus, or bacterial infections like congenital syphilis or tuberculosis, and some parasitic infections like malaria. There are 4 types of malaria. This also called by malaria type of malaria. And then others are drugs, and other causes are some malignancy like lymphoma, and others are amyloidosis. These are the causes of nephrotic syndrome. Okay, now let us come to the, what are the pathophysiology of proteinuria that I have already told. The pathophysiology of proteinuria, the first one is there is a abnormal lymphocytes in nephrotic syndrome. This because nephrotic syndrome is an autoimmune type of disease. Usually it has been seen that the child suffering from nephrotic syndrome, some of the family members might have some allergic reactions, allergic diseases. So autoimmune means there is a abnormal lymphocytes which produce abnormal lymphokines, and this abnormal lymphokines causes increase in the space between the food process and also increase in the pores of the endothelial. Now come to the hypoalbuminemia. I have already told that hypoalbuminemia occurs due to the excess loss of albumin and the inadequate synthesis, and there may be increased catabolism. That's why after massive proteinuria, the patient develop hypoalbuminemia. Now come to the proposed explanation of the infections. So usually what happens, it has been seen that the patient with nephrotic syndrome will have complications like infections. Why there is infections? Means because in case of nephrotic syndrome, there is a edema, and this edema fluids acts as a culture media. And other causes are their there is immunosuppression, so patient is immunocompromised. The third one is there is a loss of properdine. The properdine is nothing but it is a complement which lost in the urine. And the fourth cause is there is a sluggishness of the macrophages, and it causes the infections. So in case of nephrotic syndrome, you can get any type of infections from head to toe. Means the patient may have meningitis, the patient may have pyoderma, the patient may have chest infections. You might be knowing that patient with nephrotic syndrome can suffer from pneumonia, can be there is a flaring of the tuberculosis also, and the patient will have peritonitis and UTI. So any types of infections can occur in case of nephrotic syndrome. Now come to the hyperlipidemia. Why hyperlipidemia occurs? The hyperlipidemia is due to the increased hepatic lipoprotein synthesis that is triggered by the reduced oncotic pressure. The second one is decreased lipid catabolism. The third one is low density lipoprotein. And fourth one is the relative risk for myocardial infarctions and coronary heart disease. So hyperlipidemia, in case of nephrotic syndrome, patient may suffer from all those diseases. Now come to the thrombin hypercoagulability. The patient with nephrotic syndrome can have complications like hypercoagulability. Why there is hypercoagulability? So it might be increased urinary loss of antithrombin. 3. The second one is due to the altered level and activity of the protein C and S. The third one is due to the impaired fibrinogen. And there are other factors also which causes hypercoagulability. Now come to the patient with nephrotic syndrome can have complications like hypocalcemia. Why there is hypocalcemia? Hypocalcemia is due to low serum albumin. So usually what happens, the calcium will bind with the albumin, but if there is a low, so there is a more is bind to the albumin, and in the blood, the less amount of calcium is there. It also occurs due to the urinary excretion of vitamin D. In case of nephrotic syndrome, there is a excretion of vitamin D. That's why there is a low hypocalcemia. Low bone density and abnormal bone histology is responsible for child with nephrotic syndrome. Now come to the hypovolemia. So why there is hypovolemia in case of nephrotic syndrome? The hypovolemia is due to occurs when hypoalbuminemia decreases the oncotic pressure. The second one is resulting in the loss of plasma water into the interstitium and causing, that I have already told previously also. And hypovolemia is generally observed only when the patient serum albumin level is less than 1.2 gram per deciliter. Usually, if the edema occurs only when the serum albumin level goes below 2.5 gram per deciliter. So, in hypovolemia, what happens? As the albumin level goes down. Huh? Hello? क्या हुआ? इंटरप्शन भयो क्या? हैं? इंटरप्शन तो भयो छैन एकछिन इंटरप्शन भयो छ भाइ ल एकछिन यो इको भइरहेछ किन हेर त यो यसमा त नआउनु हेलो जे के भएछ केही इन्टरप्सन भएछ भाइ हेलो
छैन सर छैन भएको
अनि कहाँबाट फेरि एकजनाले ल ओके देन कम टु द now functional consequences of the urinary loss of plasma protein. The thyroid binding protein, vitamin D binding proteins, total calcium, these all are reduced. That's why now come to the what are the symptoms and signs of nephrotic syndrome. If any patient comes in the hospital, the mother is explaining that my child is having puffiness of the face, means swelling of the face. Along with that, there is a swelling of the palpebral fissure also. So, the first of all, and other symptoms are the patient have the symptoms of anorexia. Some of the patients may have diarrhea also. There may be pain abdomen also. You can ask me why there is a anorexia, because there is a congestion of the intestinal mucosa. And why there is a diarrhea? Because due to congestion also. Why there is a pain abdomen? The pain, there are so many causes of pain abdomen. It is one of the ischemia of the intestinal blood vessels. The others are due to some drugs. Patient is taking either corticosteroids or some other drugs. It may also cause pain abdomen. Then there may be malaise. The patient will feel weak and puffy face and eyelids, have not abdominal pain that I have already told, and the patient's muscles is wasted. Pedal edema. The patient will present as a pedal edema also. Difficulty in breathing. Why there is difficulty in breathing? Because the patient may develop pleural effusion or may have pneumonia or may have tuberculosis also if the patient is having nephrotic syndrome. Then there may be ascites also. So these are the symptoms and signs of the patient with nephrotic syndrome. So what are the differential diagnoses? If you see the child with nephrotic syndrome, you will think that it might be a case of heart failure, because the patient with heart failure may have puffiness of the face, may have ascites, may have edema. You will confuse with the cirrhosis of liver also. Usually most of the findings in clinical features is same as cirrhosis of liver. Then glomerulonephritis, the presentation of glomerulonephritis is same as nephrotic syndrome. And then क्वासवर्कर, you might have malnutrition पढ़ाई भइसक्यो कि भए छैन? हेलो, malnutrition पढ़ाई भएछ, क्वासवर्करहरु पढ़ाई भएछ छैन होला हैन?
हजुर सर, भइसक्यो पढाइ
भइसक्यो?
हजुर सर
ल, so the patient can have, these are the differential diagnoses that you will confuse with the nephrotic syndrome. Now come to the investigations. The most common investigation in nephrotic syndrome is the urine analysis. Means I have already told that you have to do the physical, you must see the urine. Usually nephrotic syndrome patient will have frothy urine. If you are not getting the frothing, you shake the bottle and you'll find that the froth will come above. Then other things, the physical exam, chemical examination, if you do the microscopic examination or chemical examination, you will get the albumin. Usually the albumin is either 3+ or 4+. Then other examination, you will do microscopic examination, you will find there is a pus cells. There may be hyaline cast also. So these are the things that you will get in urine analysis. Urine sediment examination, urine protein measurement, 24 hours protein, urinary protein, that you have to find it out. What happens? Usually in massive proteinuria means if the insulin albumin is more than 1 gram in 24 hours or 40 milligram per square meter body surface area per hour. So this is the 24 hours. Then you have to do the urinary protein creatinine ratio. Usually it should be more than 2. If it is more than 2, then only you can confirm the diagnosis. Yes, it is a case of nephrotic syndrome. If it is less than 2, it cannot be a nephrotic syndrome. It might be other causes. Now come to the total serum protein. You must know, you might be knowing that the total serum protein is 5 to 7 gram per deciliter. But if the total serum protein is less, then it might, most probably, it is a case of nephrotic syndrome. Then come to the complement. Usually what happens in nephrotic syndrome, all the types of nephrotic syndrome, there is no reduction of the, only in case of focal sclerosis, mesangial-proliferative, membranous and membranoproliferative. And also in case of SLE, you will get the hypocomplementemia. The complement level will be decreased. Then other renal function test. So what are the renal function tests that you have to do? It is the serum cholesterol, then complement that I have told, and then there is sodium, potassium, urea, creatinine that you have to do. Usually what happens, the cholesterol level is high. If the cholesterol level you get high, the chances of prognosis is good. Okay, so these are the investigation that you have to do. The other investigation, serological studies, that renal ultrasonography, and then renal biopsy. So renal biopsy is important in case of nephrotic syndrome. If the patient, if you are treating any child with nephrotic syndrome, if the patient could not respond with the corticosteroids, you should think that it might not be a case of minimal change. Rather, it might be other types of nephrotic syndrome. And so you must do the biopsy. So what are the indications? There are so many indications of biopsy. The first one is if the child is less than 1 year and more than 10 years. The second one is if there is a frequent relapse, if there is a steroid resistant, or if there is a patient is having a steroid dependent type of nephrotic syndrome. You must do the renal biopsy. Then come to the important, there are some important definitions that we must remember. The first one is response. Protein-free urine on 3 consecutive days within 7 days. Response means, now I will come in the treatment. If you give the steroid, it is the specific treatment for nephrotic syndrome. If the patient, usually most often the patient will respond in 7 to 10 days. But sometimes some of the patients may be earlier responder and there might be late responder also. But if the patient could not respond even up to 2 months or 8 weeks of steroid treatment, it is called steroid resistant. So response means the effect of medication on the nephrotic syndrome or proteinuria. In response also, you have to do the clinical response and the investigation response or chemical response. Clinical response means if you are giving the steroid to the patients having nephrotic syndrome, what will happen first? The patient weight will decrease. The patient edema will decrease. The urinary output will be increased. And these are the things is called clinical response. And in the other investigation, if you do the urine examination, if there is a 4+ albumin in the beginning of the treatment, so after few days of treatment, you'll get the level of the albumin will go down, means either 2+ or 3+, and this is called response. So when you come to the ward, if you get any child with nephrotic syndrome, you have to do, you have to take the weight, you have to take the abdominal girth, you have to take the weight, you have to take the body surface area, and then you have to see the response of the corticosteroids. Now let us come to the relapse. Relapse means protein positive urine on 3 consecutive days within 1 week, means relapse. Even if you gave the corticosteroids, the patient would respond in the beginning, but after few days, the patient again develop edema. This is called relapse. There may be other frequent relapse. Steroid sensitive nephrotic patient is steroid sensitive with 2 or more relapses in 6 months or more than 3 in 1 year. This is called frequent relapse. Then what is steroid dependent? Responder who relapses while steroid is being tapered or within 14 days of stopping the steroid. What happens if you give the steroid? I will come to the treatment. There are 2 protocols. One is ISKDC protocol and one is APN protocol. I will come in the treatment. Now let us come to the initial non-responder, no responding initial 8 weeks of, so this is called steroid resistant. Now let us come to the complications of nephrotic syndrome. I have already described about the first complication nephrotic syndrome is the infections, and there are so many types of infections. What are the factors, causes infections that I have already told. Then the second one is acute renal failure because of hypovolemia. The patient will go into anuria, oliguria, and goes to the acute renal failure also. So hypercoagulability, that I have already told. I have described what are the causes of hypercoagulability also. Then come to the hypocalcemia also. I have already described it previously. Then come to the chest infections and pleural effusion. So these are the complications of the nephrotic syndrome. Now come to the complications of steroid. If you give the steroid, what are the complications the patient can have? Once you start the treatment, in the next day or second or third day, the mother will tell that my child is having good appetite, taking more and more food. But in case of nephrotic syndrome, what we have found, there is anorexia, so increased appetite. The second one, so when the patient have increased appetite, the patient becomes carcinoid facies. Carcinoid facies, there is a development of secondary sexual character like mustacho, and there may be others, hypertrichosis. So these are the things that you will get. Secondary sexual characters, and then osteoporosis. Steroid will cause osteoporosis. The patient may suffer from glaucoma. The patient may develop cataract. And then which type of cataract? This is a posterior subcapsular cataract, if you give the steroid for a long time. The third one is myopathy. And the most important also, the growth failure. Why there is a growth failure? Because of the delayed closure of the early closure of the secondary ossification center. And that's why the patient may develop growth failure also. Now come to the management. How can you treat a case of nephrotic syndrome? The first treatment will be admission. So why admission is necessary? The admission is necessary only because this type of patient may have this edema or proteinuria in so many renal diseases like nephritis, nephrotic syndrome. So you have to confirm the diagnosis. So admission is necessary. So you just admit the patient in the ward and then you confirm the diagnosis, whether it is nephrotic syndrome or not. So admission is necessary. The second one is treatment of infections. Treatment of infections means what are the infections? Either UTI or acute peritonitis or pneumonia or tuberculosis or any type of infections you have to treat. And for that, you have to give the antibiotic also. So for that, you have to admit the patients. So come to the supportive therapy. And supportive therapy means general treatment. General treatment means you have to give less amount of fluid. You have to restrict the sodium. You have to restrict other cholesterol. But you have to give more and more protein. Which protein? In albumin. And when you will get the albumin means you have to give white of the eggs, not the yellow. So these are the management. Now let us come admission. Why admission? I have already told, to confirm diagnosis, to plan for treatment and counseling the caregiver. Now come to the treatment of infections, UTI, tuberculosis, peritonitis, and other infections that you have to treat. Then come to the supportive therapy, diet, adequate protein, avoid fat, salt restrictions. Now come to the specific treatment. Means you have to give the corticosteroids, steroids. It is the most important treatment for nephrotic syndrome. And I have already told that there are two protocols. One is ISKDC and one is APN. ISKD International Society of Kidney Disease. Okay, for that, and APN is the German protocol. And here, in case of ISKDC, you have to give 2 mg per kg body weight of steroid, of prednisolone, for 6 weeks continuous. And then after 6 weeks, you have to give 1.5 mg per kg on alternate day for 6 weeks. In other words also, either you give 2 mg or you have to give 60 mg per square meter body surface area per day. So for that, you have to take the body surface area of the patients. And how can you take? You might have some logbook, and on the back of the logbook, you'll get how to take out the body surface area. And the 6 weeks continuous therapy, and then 6 weeks alternate day therapy. And then you have to taper and then withdraw it. The other protocol is APN. Here you have to give 40 mg per square meter body surface area for 4 weeks, and then for alternate day for 4 weeks. And then you have to taper the corticosteroids. Why tapering is important? If you don't taper, then if you give the steroid for a long time, the patient may develop so many problems like myopathy, then like cataract, like glaucoma. So you must taper the corticosteroids. Now come to the treatment of complications of the disease. I have already told the other is treatment of complications of the disease like infections, UTI, chest infection, bacterial peritonitis, pulmonary tuberculosis, acute renal failure, hypercoagulability. These are the that you have to treat. Then treatment of complications such as steroids means growth failure, you have to treat. How can you treat? Means you have to give more and more protein. Glaucoma, you have to treat. You have to go to the ophthalmologist. Then cataract, you have to do the cataract operation also. For osteoporosis, you have to consult the orthopedician, or you have to give more and more vitamin D diet. Then myopathy, you have to reduce the steroid, and then you have to give some physiotherapy also. Now come to the other medications. If the patient is having steroid resistant, then the corticosteroids will not respond at all. That's why you have to give either corticosteroids or cyclophosphamide, cyclosporin, rituximab, then myophenolate, and then diuretics and AC inhibitors. So these are the other drugs, alternative drugs for the patient having frequent relapse or having steroid resistant or steroid dependent. So you have to give other drugs also, and the patient will respond. Now come to the, what are the prognosis? Usually what happens if the child is suffering from minimal chain nephrotic syndrome, the response of the steroid is 90%. But in other type of nephrotic syndrome, like focal sclerosis, the response is only 20 to 30%. And membranoproliferative, it is also 30 to 40% only. So what will happen? The patient will go into, some of the patients will go into end-stage renal disease. And for end-stage renal disease, we have to do some renal transplantation. But minimal change of nephrotic syndrome does not need any type of renal transplantation. It responds very nicely. 90 to 100% of the patients respond nicely. Now, let us come to the, so what is the summary? What are the things we have discussed? Nephrotic syndrome is a condition that causes the kidney to leak large amount of protein in the urine. The second one, it is common in 2 to 5 years of children. The third one in every 50,000 children are diagnosed with these conditions. It is more common in families with history of allergy. Nephrotic syndrome is usually controlled with steroid. So these are the summary of the nephrotic syndrome. Okay. So for today, I think it is enough. Or if I have left